Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into Feed Your Body and Nurture Your Heart, connecting nutrition and your heart's health. My name is Naomi, and I'm a patient advocate at Cardio Diagnostics. In last month's newsletter, we introduced the big four metrics: blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, and body weight, and talked about how essential it is to establish a personal baseline. Today, we're taking the next step together to see how the everyday food choices on your plate directly influence those core metrics. Let's dive in. During today's webinar, we'll start by discussing why food is so much more than just calories. It is the biological fuel that has a direct impact on your cardiovascular system. Next, we will at the exact mechanics of how sodium, saturated fats, excess sugar, and portion sizes create physical strain and wear inside your blood vessels. Finally, we will outline three highly researched heart healthy dietary frameworks and discuss practical everyday strategies to help you rewrite your heart's story, one small choice at a time. To kick off our first section, Food as Fuel for the Heart, we want to frame how daily nutrition directly dictates the physical workload and biological effects on your cardiovascular system. When you look at your primary health metrics, sodium, blood sugar, cholesterol, and weight, it's easy to view them as static numbers on a lab report, but they are actually fluid and provide real-time feedback. Sodium directly controls fluid volume in your bloodstream, dictates fluid retention, and drives blood pressure. Refined sugars dictate the concentration of glucose in your blood, causing wear and tear along your arterial walls. Saturated fats signal your liver to produce lipoproteins that alter circulating fat balances, and portion size impacts your weight, which affects your systemic vascular resistance, impacting the physical force your heart muscle must exert with every single beat. Nutrition serves as an important line of defense to halt arterial damage and plaque accumulation long before clinical complications arise. Essential nutrients and antioxidants actively protect the delicate endothelial lining of your blood vessels. Key minerals like potassium and magnesium promote natural vasodilation, easing resistance so blood flows effortlessly. Meanwhile, healthy unsaturated fats help calm systemic inflammatory pathways, keeping your vessels flexible, resilient, and responsive. Now let's move into mechanics behind the meal, where we examine specific physiological mechanisms of how individual nutrients interact with your cardiovascular system. Think of sodium as a magnet for water in your bloodstream. When you consume excess salt, your body holds on to extra water to dilute it, expanding your total blood volume. Pushing more liquid through a closed system increases pressure against your vessel walls, much like turning up the flow in a garden hose. This results in an increase in blood pressure, which, if chronic, will lead to a diagnosis of hypertension. To protect against hypertension and stroke, the World Health Organization recommends keeping sodium under 2,000 milligrams a day, while the American Heart Association advises an ideal limit of 1,500 milligrams for adults with elevated blood pressure to relieve mechanical strain on the heart. Try to keep it under 1 teaspoon of salt a day. Diet heavy in saturated and trans fats prompt the liver to overproduce LDL, the lipid carriers that transport waxy cholesterol through your bloodstream. When excess LDL circulates, it can deposit along arterial walls, oxidize, and build up into fibrous plaque and and stiffens vessels. Healthy LDL levels are below 100 milligrams per deciliter. According to the American Heart Association, limiting saturated fat intake to under 7% of your daily calories can drop circulating LDL levels by up to 10%. Aim to limit your consumption of saturated fats to 13 grams a day. Chronically high blood sugar levels mean glucose molecules are constantly floating through your system, causing stiffness and wear on the smooth inner lining of your blood vessels. Over time, this ongoing strain causes arteries to stiffen, lose elasticity, and scar. The American Diabetes Association notes the normal target blood sugar levels are between 80 and 130 milligrams per deciliter before meals and below 180 after meals. This can be tested by doing a blood glucose test with an at-home glucometer. The ADA emphasizes prioritizing complex low glycemic foods, which are slow digesting foods like whole grains and legumes, to prevent sharp glucose spikes. The American Heart Association recommends limiting added sugar to 9 teaspoons per day for men and 6 teaspoons per day for women. Portion size is a significant driver to overall caloric intake and long-term weight management. Added body mass directly increases systemic vascular resistance, the overall resistance your blood encounters as it moves through your body. In short, higher resistance means your heart muscle has to pump harder. National Institute of Health research shows that managing body weight reduces systemic vascular resistance, significantly lightening the heart's workload. When building your plate for meals, keep in mind these portions of foods as recommended by Baker Heart and Diabetes Institute. Half of your plate should be filled with non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, spinach, or peppers. A quarter of your plate should be filled with complex carbs like brown rice, quinoa, and sweet potatoes. And a quarter of your plate should be filled with lean proteins like chicken, fish, or beans. Next, we'll discuss evidence-based heart-healthy diets. We will review 3 well-researched dietary frameworks that support long-term cardiovascular health. The DASH diet, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, focuses on lowering blood pressure and LDL cholesterol. It emphasizes fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairy, lean meats, fish, unsalted nuts, and seeds. Because DASH foods are naturally rich in potassium, calcium, and magnesium, they help relax blood vessels. NIH-funded studies demonstrate that following the DASH plan can lower blood pressure within weeks. The Mediterranean diet prioritizes fresh, whole foods, whole grain, legumes, extra virgin olive oil as the primary healthy fat, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices, and seafood rich in anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids. By replacing saturated cooking fats with olive oil and swapping table salt for aromatic herbs and spices, it naturally elevates good HDL cholesterol while lowering daily sodium. Extensive clinical research highlighted by the Mayo Clinic confirms that this approach is among the most effective for reducing overall heart disease risk. A whole food, plant-based diet centers on vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, and plant proteins like tofu, tempeh, and edamame. Since cholesterol is found exclusively in animal products, minimizing animal fats naturally reduce circulating lipids. Additionally, plant foods are loaded with soluble fiber, which the American Heart Association notes acts like a sponge in your digestive system, binding to excess cholesterol and removing it before it enters your bloodstream. Finally, taking the first step. We will translate these dietary concepts into practical, simple habits you can adopt. Sustainable cardiovascular health isn't built through extreme short-term diets. It's achieved through daily manageable choices. Small positive habits practiced consistently allow your blood vessels to protect and repair themselves over time. The American Heart Association recommends habit stacking, pairing a new healthy food choice with an established routine. as the most reliable way to build permanent habits. Traditional diets focus heavily on restriction and elimination, which often feels draining. Instead, adopt the mindset of adding rather than subtracting. When you intentionally add nutrient-dense, fiber-rich foods to your plate, they naturally crowd out less nutritious options. Try adding a vibrant fruit or vegetable to every meal, stirring spinach into your morning eggs, choosing a small handful of unsalted walnuts for an afternoon snack, or adding a cup of quinoa to your meals. Public health nutrition research shows that when we're hungry, we default to whatever food is most convenient. By structuring your environment so healthy options are front and center, you make the right choice. Simple prep strategies include washing and storing chopped produce in clear containers at eye level in the fridge, batch cooking whole grain like quinoa or brown rice, and keeping pre-portioned raw nuts ready to grab at on a busy day. All of the information and recommendations shared today are grounded in clinical research from trusted institutions, including the American Heart Association, the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, PubMed research databases, leading clinical centers like the Mayo Clinic, and Baker Heart and Diabetes Institute. Thank you so much for your time and focus today. Building a heart healthy lifestyle is a continuous journey of small choices, and I encourage you to pick just one positive addition to start with this week. Until next time.